The night was dark, but she walked out from the fading light. Right after we broke up, my ex-boyfriend posted a picture with my cousin on social media, making an official announcement. He even had the nerve to write, "We're still family." Yeah, family. I turned around and married his grandfather. Come on, dear grandson, call me grandma. I had noticed my boyfriend was acting weird lately. He kept disappearing into thin air, ignoring my calls, and ghosting my texts. If I asked him about it, he'd accuse me of making a scene out of nothing, pick a massive fight, slam the door, and storm out. Eventually, I reached my breaking point and broke up with him. I didn't expect him to walk away without a single word of regret. He just threw back, "Whatever makes you happy," and spun around to leave. An hour later, my best friend Chloe sent me a screenshot of a social media post. It was a selfie of my ex, Austin, and my cousin, Haley. Their faces were pressed together, flashing blindingly bright smiles. The caption read, "Finally found the one." I felt like a massive green wave of betrayal had just crashed over my head. When exactly did you and Austin break up? Chloe sent a string of question marks. An hour ago, I replied honestly. I opened the app to check, and no surprise, the trashy couple had already blocked and deleted me. Even a beast doesn't graze on its own doorstep. When the hell did these two hook up behind my back? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I grabbed a baseball bat from the corner of my room and charged out the door. Chapter 2. Austin and I had been dating for over a year. We had already agreed to go home together this winter to meet each other's parents and lock down our engagement. A few months ago, Haley moved to my city alone for college. My aunt and uncle called me multiple times, begging me to look after her. Thinking it wasn't easy for a young girl with no friends in the city, I constantly invited her out for dinners and movie nights. Over time, she became very close with me and my boyfriend. Not long ago, I had to travel out of town for a business trip. Before leaving, I specifically told Austin to look after my cousin and help her out if she needed anything. I never expected him to take care of her all the way into his bed. Chapter 3. I had just sprinted out of my apartment complex when Chloe intercepted me. "Harper, calm down. Anger is a demon. That piece of trash isn't worth a prison sentence." "I am calm," I said, gripping the heavy baseball bat. "I'm just going over to give them a friendly neighborhood greeting." Of course I knew the line between a felony and a beatdown. I just couldn't swallow this disrespect. I wanted to go over there and tear a layer of skin off them. Chloe clearly didn't believe me. She hopped into the Uber with me, making sure I didn't do anything completely fatal. By the time we reached Austin's rented apartment, dusk had fallen. Before we even entered the building, we spotted a man walking down from his floor. The man was tall, with one hand casually thrust into his pocket and the other holding a phone, deep in a call. Even though it was dark and the lighting was terrible, and he was wearing a face mask, I instantly recognized his suit. That was the birthday gift I gave Austin. I remembered sweating under the scorching sun, running through over a dozen stores for days just to pick that exact one. It had cost me 2 full months of my salary. Scumbag. I gave him a designer suit, and he handed me a green hat of betrayal. A roaring fire consumed my chest. I wanted to tear him to pieces. Yet, as he passed right by me, he acted like I was air, not even bothering to glance my way. That completely set me off. I spun around and delivered a brutal, full-force kick straight to his backside. Cheating bastard. He was kicked flat to the ground. As he scrambled to roll over and get up, the baseball bat in my hands was already coming down with a fierce whoosh, striking him square in the forehead. "Oh, Harper? What are you doing here?" Haley's voice drifted down as she came skipping down the stairs. She was holding hands with a man. It was Austin. Austin? Then who the hell did I just smash? My stomach dropped. I quickly turned around. The man on the ground was struggling to his feet. The mask had fallen off his face, revealing an incredibly handsome, sharp-featured countenance. There was a small gash on his forehead. He was covering it with his hand, blood oozing through his long, elegant fingers. His dark eyes were cold as ice, staring at me with a slight, piercing frown. Holy shit, I hit the wrong guy. Chapter 4. Grandpa. Uncle Silas. Austin rushed over like a bullet. Are you okay? You're bleeding. Quick, let me take you to the ER. Harper, you are in deep trouble. Austin hissed, glaring at me savagely before they left. I don't know if it was my imagination, but when the handsome man heard my name, his gaze locked onto me. He didn't look away once until the car door slammed shut. He stared at me so intensely that my skin crawled, making me completely forget why I had even come. On the way back, Chloe asked me, "Are we still getting revenge?" I felt like a popped balloon. Let's talk about it later. Anxiety began to creep in. Did I just mess with a monster? I remembered Austin mentioning before that he had a young granduncle who was only 10 years older than him. This uncle ran the entire family empire, possessed ruthless business tactics, and was someone absolutely nobody dared to cross. His grandnephew cheated on you first. As the elder, it's only fair he took a hit for his family's trash, Chloe analyzed. Then she sighed, but damn, I didn't expect Austin's granduncle to be that young and hot. His status in that family is insane. He's gorgeous, but I wonder if that bat ruined his face. Hearing that made me feel even more guilty. I had attended a martial arts academy and won quite a few sparring championships. That swing had been fueled by pure, unadulterated rage. Sure enough, a couple of days later, Austin showed up at my doorstep. He told me his granduncle had regained consciousness, but his forehead required several stitches, and he was still hospitalized. Austin demanded that I go to the hospital immediately to apologize in person. Apologizing was fine, but hearing it come out of Austin's mouth made my blood boil. Why do you think I swung that bat? Don't you have any shame, Austin? He took that hit for you. Instead of playing the dutiful grandson in the hospital, you come here to bark orders at me? Do you want a taste of this bat too? I deliberately eyed the baseball bat resting against the door. Don't be crazy. Back off. Austin jumped back 3 steps in pure terror. Harper, let's talk like civilized people. I have nothing to say to a dog. Get out. Harper, Austin called out from the safety of the hallway corner, still refusing to give up. I know you hate me. My leaving broke your heart and made you lose your mind. But what man doesn't like a gentle, cute, sweet girl who knows how to lean on a man? Look at you. You're always aggressive, practicing martial arts, ready to fight. What guy can handle that? Harper, we broke up, but we're still going to be family. Since you're going to have to call me brother-in-law in the future, let me give you a piece of advice. Learn from Haley. Soften up your character. In the end, he couldn't escape getting a severe, bone-crunching beating from me. Chapter 5. Later, Chloe called to tell me I could breathe easy. Silas, Austin's granduncle, had found out the entire backstory of the incident. He had no intention of coming after me. Instead, he directed his absolute fury straight at the root cause, Austin. Silas threatened to cut off every single cent of Austin's financial backing. Austin had been running his business for the past few years, looking like a flashy, successful CEO on the outside, but his bank accounts were entirely in the red. He had been surviving solely on cash injections from the main family estate. If his granduncle cut the cord, his company would instantly go bankrupt. That was why Austin had demanded I apologize. He wanted me to use the apology to say some good words for him to Silas. He was really daydreaming. Chapter 6. Shortly after the incident, I took my annual leave early and went back to my hometown to stay with my parents. During this time, Haley tried to add me back on social media multiple times, but I rejected her every single time. The night I got home, my mom asked if I had been in touch with Haley. It turned out that because Haley couldn't reach me, she actually called our grandmother. God knows what kind of sob story she spun, but Grandma called my mom and gave her a massive lecture, telling me to value family harmony, drop my prejudices, accept Haley's apology, and add her back. Harper, I know you've been a tough, straightforward girl since you were a kid, and you've always been good to Haley. Did she do something truly unforgivable this time? My mom asked. I looked at my mom. Mother truly knows best. Mom, don't worry. I'll handle it. With that, I turned and went back to my room. If she wanted to be contacted so badly, fine. If I didn't clear this up, she would keep playing the victim and slandering me in front of all our relatives. The moment I accepted her friend request, Haley fired off a massive wall of text. Harper, I know you hate me, I know you despise me, but I truly love Austin. I was the one who pursued him, it has nothing to do with him. You can hit me, you can curse at me, just please don't ignore me. Harper, Austin is facing a massive crisis right now, his company is dying, and only you can save him by talking to Uncle Silas. Please help us, I beg you. So that was what this was about. How do you have the face to even type that out? I replied. Sister. She started crying text walls again, typing a massive sob story. It was all about how much she loved Austin, how sorry she was, begging for forgiveness, and how Austin's company was collapsing. Every sentence was dripping with toxic, fake innocent tears. I systematically screenshotted every single word of her begging text. Then I pulled up the screenshot of her and Austin's relationship announcement post, along with old photos of the three of us eating out together when they were already fooling around. I compiled them nicely and dropped the whole bomb directly into the extended We Are Family group chat. Since she didn't think being a homewrecker and stealing her cousin's boyfriend was shameful, I decided to broadcast it to the world. The second the messages hit the chat, the entire family group exploded. Chapter 7. My parents stormed into my room immediately. Harper, what is going on? Is what you posted in the group chat true? I nodded and explained the whole story from beginning to end, omitting only the part where I accidentally bashed Austin's granduncle. My parents stayed up half the night comforting me, getting angrier by the second. My mom has a fierce temper. By the end of it, she actually stood up, marched to the kitchen, and grabbed a knife, shouting that she was going to drive over and confront my aunt's family. I had to physically tackle her. Mom, calm down. Chill out. Anger is a demon. After finally calming my parents down, I opened my phone. The family group chat had 999 plus unread messages. I scrolled through. My uncle had stood up for me, calling out Haley in the chat. My aunt, fiercely defensive of her daughter, started screaming back, and the two crawled into a massive text war. Grandma finally realized Haley was the one who did this disgusting thing. She dropped 6 consecutive 60-second voice notes, absolutely tearing into Haley and my aunt. My aunt, famous for being arrogant and unreasonable, actually lost her mind and started insulting Grandma too. That insult triggered the entire group. Every single relative jumped out, blasting my aunt for being a terrible mother and condemning Haley for her lack of morals. My aunt's family of 3 couldn't handle the heat of dozens of angry relatives. In the end, they left the group chat in absolute humiliation, declaring they would cut ties with us forever. Looking at the chat logs, I felt a wave of cold satisfaction. Since that day, my aunt's family blocked everyone in our house. Meanwhile, my mom went into a frenzy trying to set me up on blind dates. In her words, the best way to move on from a piece of trash is to start a new relationship with someone 10 times better to spite her older sister. But I never expected that the man she set me up with would be Silas, Austin's granduncle, the poor guy I had hospitalized with a baseball bat. Chapter 8. That day was exceptionally freezing, with a howling wind that made everyone miserable. By the afternoon, snow began to fall heavily. The blind date was set in a high-end cafe. The moment I walked in, I noticed a remarkably handsome man sitting in the corner booth. He wore an incredibly expensive, tailored suit. His cuffs were slightly rolled up, revealing pale, elegant wrists. A laptop sat open on the table before him, and he was looking down, focused on work. Outside, the snow swirled. Inside, he looked calm, sophisticated, and elite, a steaming cup of coffee by his hand. The scene was stunningly beautiful. I couldn't help but pull out my phone and sneak a quick photo. "Why aren't you going in?" My mom, having parked the car, walked in behind me. "I don't see him," I said, scanning the room for anyone looking like a nervous bachelor. "Silas." My mom waved loudly, grabbing my arm and pulling me straight toward the gorgeous man in the suit. The man lifted his head. He had sharp, cold brows, eyes as dark as ink, and pale skin, radiating a commanding, elite aura. Except there was a neat white bandage wrapped around his forehead. Wasn't this the man I had accidentally smashed? Austin's granduncle? Why on earth was he here? "Hello." "Silas Vance," he said, rising smoothly and giving a polite nod. His dark eyes swept over me briefly before he looked away. "Silas, sorry to keep you waiting. Traffic was awful." "This is my daughter, Harper." My mom sat down eagerly and immediately began listing all my achievements. My brain was short-circuiting. He was my blind date? My ex-boyfriend's granduncle? Does a billionaire elite like him even need blind dates? Or was he forced into this by his family too? "What are you daydreaming about?" "Mr. Vance is talking to you." My mom nudged my elbow. "Huh?" I snapped out of it. "What did you say?" "Miss Harper has a very powerful swing," Silas said with a faint, amused smile, his eyes drifting to the canvas bag by my seat. It was my old martial arts academy bag, with the school's name boldly embroidered on it. I had grabbed it in a rush this morning. I looked at the bandage on his head, feeling incredibly guilty. It was average, nothing special. Harper had a weak constitution as a child, so she trained at a martial arts academy for a few years, my mom explained proudly. "I know," Silas murmured. "He knew? How did he know?" "Oh, right. I just remembered I have an urgent matter to attend to. You two enjoy your coffee, I'll head out first." My mom suddenly stood up, giving me a deeply meaningful look. "Mom." I blinked at her frantically, begging her with my eyes to take me with her. But my mom completely ignored me, smiled radiantly, and walked out. "Mom, can't you see this man's aura is terrifying? I have nothing to say to him." Sure enough, the moment my mom left, the table plunged into silence. An agonizing, dead silence. I could only keep drinking water frantically to relieve my nervousness. Soon, my glass was completely empty. Silas raised a hand, summoned the waiter, and ordered a warm lemon water for me. I had drunk so much water I wanted to vomit. I forced myself to speak up. About that day. "I didn't mean to." "Miss Harper is exceptionally strong," he replied, his tone carrying a hint of genuine praise. How much do I owe you for the damages? Or the medical bills?" "I'm willing to pay everything back," I stammered. His handsome brows furrowed slightly. "Do you always stutter, Miss Harper?" "What?" I slammed my glass down and stood up, suddenly annoyed. "I do not stutter." I glared at him. "Mr. Vance, someone like you doesn't need a blind date at all. You knew it was me today, didn't you? You came here just to make me look foolish." He chuckled softly. "Now, this feels more like you." He was completely baffling. I glared at him, grabbed my canvas bag, and turned to leave. "I'll drive you home," he said, picking up his overcoat and standing up. "I can take a cab," I snapped, refusing. He didn't force me and went to settle the bill. I walked out fast, pulling out my phone to call my mom to pick me up. "I'm already home," and I took the car. "Figure out your own way back, sweetie," my mom said and instantly hung up. Was she even my real mother? Chapter 9. It's rush hour. You won't get a ride on those apps. As I was frantically tapping my phone screen, Silas appeared behind me, watching calmly. I ignored him, crossing my arms and stepping a few paces away. "Let's go. I'll drop you off." "It's on my way," he said, taking his keys from the valet and unlocking his luxury SUV. I wanted to refuse, but looking at the intensifying snow and the darkening sky, I swallowed my pride and climbed into the passenger seat. The entire drive was silent. The streets were covered in a thin layer of snow, so the car moved very slowly. Because I had chugged so much water at the cafe, I quickly began to feel extremely uncomfortable. Too embarrassed to speak up, I tried to endure it. Finally, unable to hold it any longer, I squeezed out, "Mr. Vance, can you just drop me off here? I can walk. My house isn't far." He glanced at me through the rearview mirror, said nothing, and pulled right up to the entrance of a high-end shopping mall. "Restrooms are on the second floor." His words sounded like an angelic choir. I bolted to the second floor at a 100-meter sprint. Once inside the stall, I realized a disaster had struck. My period had arrived. My cycle was completely unpredictable, always showing up unannounced. There wasn't enough tissue in the dispenser. I crouched there waiting for someone to come in so I could ask for help, but at that hour, the restroom remained completely empty. Just as I was getting desperate and about to order a delivery on an app, an unknown number called my phone. "Are you okay? Why haven't you come out?" It was Silas. I had absolutely no choice. Blushing furiously, I begged him to go to the supermarket downstairs and buy a pack of sanitary pads for me. I swore to God that the moment I got out of this restroom, I would block him and never speak to him again. He was incredibly fast. A minute later, a female mall attendant walked in, handing me a bag with the pads and a soft luxury overcoat. It was Silas's coat. My pants weren't ruined, but I was freezing, and the cold made my lower abdomen cramp. I wrapped his coat around myself. It carried a faint, crisp, masculine scent that felt surprisingly comforting. Wearing his coat, I sneaked out through the shopping mall's back exit and took a cab home. The moment I got back, my mom pulled me over. "How did it go? Is there a second date?" "No way," I denied instantly. "No way? Then why are you wearing his coat? He drove you home, didn't he?" My mom exchanged a thrilled look with my dad. "He lent it to me because I was cold. I have to return it," I explained. My mom gave me a knowing smirk. "Of course you have to return it. This back-and-forth interaction is exactly how romance sparks." Haha. I ignored them and locked myself in my room. I knew it was impossible. An elite billionaire like him would never look at someone like me. Moreover, just the fact that he was Austin's granduncle was enough for me to stay a mile away from him for the rest of my life. That was what I thought. But to my utter shock, early the next morning, Silas showed up at my front door. Chapter 10. I haven't washed the coat yet. "Give me your address, I'll send it to the dry cleaners and ship it back to you," I said, blocking the doorway, assuming he came for his clothes. "Silas. What brings you here? Come in, come in." My mom spotted him and pushed me aside, welcoming him warmly. "Look at you, bringing so many gifts. Harper, go brew some coffee right now." Silas had brought an array of luxury holiday hampers, completely charming my parents within minutes. Soon, the two elders were standing at the door, waving goodbye to me. "Harper, go have fun. Your dad and I sleep early tonight, so we won't leave the door unlocked for you." I waited in my car until 9:30 last night until the mall closed, Silas said as we walked out of the complex, a look of mock grievance on his face. I gripped the phone in my pocket. Last night, the moment I got home, I had cold-bloodedly blocked his number. "Oh, I ran into an old friend in the restroom last night and took her car home, haha," I lied smoothly through my teeth. Then I gave a dry laugh, "Sorry about that. Forgot to text you. How about I buy you lunch to make up for it?" I was just being polite, but he took it seriously. "Sure. I won't be polite then. I'll pick the place." He drove me to a private luxury sanitarium. His grandfather lived there, a sweet old man in his late 80s. Elder Vance was incredibly kind, holding my hand and chatting warmly. During our conversation, I discovered that he and my grandfather were old comrades in arms who had literally saved each other's lives on the battlefield decades ago. When they were young, they had promised that their families would intermarry. Unfortunately, my father's generation consisted entirely of boys, and Elder Vance didn't have Silas until he was nearly 50. Elder Vance chuckled, "Harper, if you and Silas are meant to be, both your grandfather and I will be overjoyed in heaven." I felt awkward and sneaked a look at Silas. He was standing by the window, flipping through his father's medical charts. The bright sunlight streamed in, casting a golden silhouette around his sharp face, making him look breathtakingly handsome. I suddenly recalled the day I met him, when my bat came crashing down. When he looked up at me, his face had been a mix of innocence and pure shock. "Dad." As I was spacing out, he suddenly looked up. Our eyes locked. My face flushed a violent crimson, and I quickly averted my gaze. Elder Vance smiled knowingly. "Silas, I'm a bit hungry. Go out and buy me some food, I want the shrimp dumplings from the corner shop." Silas nodded and left. Once Silas was gone, Elder Vance asked me to open the second drawer of the bedside table and pull out a massive leather photo album. In that album, I saw the entire chronicle of Silas growing up, and surprisingly, there were traces of me. The old man pointed at the photos, telling me stories I had never known. When I was a little girl, I had a weak immune system and got sick constantly. Once, I had a dangerous high fever while my parents were out of town. My elderly grandfather had no choice but to call his old comrade. Elder Vance happened to be abroad at the time, leaving a 15-year-old Silas home alone. The teenage boy had sprinted over, hoisted me onto his back, and carried me all the way to the town hospital. After I was discharged, it was Silas who suggested to my grandfather that I should be sent to a martial arts academy to build up my strength. When I was 15, representing my academy at a citywide martial arts tournament, the roads were blocked by a massive blizzard. Silas was the one who arranged an off-road convoy to rescue me from the mountains. There was even a photo of a young, elite Silas standing on a stage, presenting a trophy to a sweaty, fierce-looking teenage me. Yet, I had absolutely no memory of him doing any of this. "Harper, I know my son. Being able to cross paths with you again is his greatest blessing," Elder Vance said deeply. As we spoke, Silas returned, followed by a young nurse in a sky-blue uniform. The nurse wore heavy, glamorous makeup. The moment she saw me, the tray in her hand almost crashed to the floor. It was Haley. "Harper? Why are you here?" Her shock was no less than mine. Chapter 11. Haley was working as a volunteer nurse here during her winter break, specifically assigned to look after Elder Vance. Seeing her uniform pulled up to expose her long legs, and hearing her voice drop into a sweet, seductive purr as she called out "Brother Silas," I understood everything instantly. Austin's company had barely started crashing, and she was already desperately hunting for her next, much richer target. But did she really think Silas would fall for her cheap tricks? Brother Silas, can you come to the storage room with me? Grandfather needs the rehabilitation equipment for his knees, but it's too heavy for me to carry alone, Haley requested after changing the old man's dressing, looking at Silas with big, innocent eyes. Is there no other staff in this hospital? Silas didn't even look at her. I'm the only one on duty during lunch hour, Haley lowered her head, looking pitiful. Brother Silas, the equipment. Miss Haley, I am not your brother, Silas cut her off coldly, his tone dripping with impatience. Moving equipment is your job description. If you are incompetent, I will have management replace you immediately. Haley bit her lip, tears welling in her eyes as she turned and left. A few minutes later, she dragged the heavy equipment in all by herself. During the therapy session, I stepped out to use the restroom. The moment I washed my hands and walked out, Haley intercepted me in the hallway. Harper, what the hell are you doing here? What is your relationship with Silas? I glanced at her, brushed past her, and kept walking. Stop daydreaming. A man like Silas would never look at a woman like you, she screamed at my back. Know your place and get away from him, or don't blame me for making your life a living hell. I stopped, spun around, and crossed my arms. Oh. What kind of woman am I? A woman his grandson dumped, Haley sneered. You just broke up with Austin, and now you rush over to throw yourself at his granduncle? Aren't you embarrassed to face Austin? If you aren't embarrassed, why should I be? I smiled faintly. Besides, I'm single. Who I date is none of your business. You should worry about yourself. If Austin finds out you're using a volunteer gig to seduce his billionaire granduncle behind his back. Shut up. This is my job. Haley interrupted viciously. My conscience is clear. But you? Austin didn't want you, you think his granduncle will? Keep dreaming. If I were you, I'd hide in a hole. Oh. I nodded, stepping closer. The more you say it, the more I want to try. You're Austin's girlfriend right now. If I end up with Silas, won't you have to bow down and call me grandma? You shameless bitch. Furious, Haley raised her hand to slap me. I snatched her wrist mid-air, twisted it back, and delivered a vicious, echoing slap right across her face. Shameless? That title belongs to you. I shoved her back with full force. Don't think stealing Austin means you have talent. I threw that garbage out, and I let you have it because you looked like a pathetic beggar. Stay out of my sight, and don't play games with me, or I will beat you every single time I see you. She stumbled back several steps from my shove, barely catching herself against the sink. When she lifted her face again, her expression transformed instantly into one of pure terror and innocence. Sister, why did you hit me? Tears streamed down her face. I know you hate me, it's all my fault for making you angry. A wave of suspicion hit me. I turned around. Sure enough, Silas was standing near the corridor corner, holding a bag of trash, leaning against the wall, watching the entire show with a dark, unreadable expression. I didn't know how long he had been standing there, or how much he had seen. But I didn't care. I was a martial artist. If I could use my fists, I wouldn't waste my breath. It was better if he saw my true colors early. Brother Silas. Haley sobbed, running over to him while holding her bruised cheek. It's not Harper's fault. I must have done something to upset her. It's only right she disciplined me, please don't blame her. I didn't bother explaining and turned to walk away. Harper, wait, Silas called out. He threw the trash into the bin, washed his hands at the sink, and walked over to stand right beside me. I already booked a table at that northern restaurant you like. Let's head over now. I stared at him, completely bewildered. Didn't you say you were buying me lunch today? Trying to run away already? Silas raised an eyebrow. Brother Silas. Haley wept, looking devastated. You guys go ahead. I'll take care of grandfather here, don't worry. Miss Haley, Silas cut her off, his voice absolute ice. From tomorrow on, you don't need to come back. I've already contacted the hospital board to have you removed and replaced. Why? Brother Silas, I don't understand. What did I do wrong? Why? Haley gasped, her face turning pale. Because you disrespected my girlfriend. Silas grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the hospital. I let him drag me down the hallway for a solid minute before my brain finally processed his words. Silas, since when am I your girlfriend? Chapter 12. He touched the bandage on his forehead. My face was ruined because of you. Shouldn't you take responsibility? Taking responsibility doesn't mean becoming your girlfriend. I was speechless. I'm the victim here, so I dictate how you pay me back, he said, pulling me into the restaurant. That's pure tyranny. Let's eat first. We can argue after. He ordered a table full of food, including my absolute favorite crispy sweet and sour pork. Faced with food, I decided to eat first. By the time I finished, I completely forgot what I wanted to argue about. Over the next few days, Silas showed up at my house like clockwork. My dad loved him, my mom adored him, and as for me, I didn't seem to find him as annoying as before. Until the incident happened. A few days before the Lunar New Year, my mom took me out to buy groceries. On our way back, we were blocked in an alley by two burly, rough-looking men. Are you Harper? One of them demanded. The moment my mom began to nod, I sensed danger, grabbed her arm, and screamed at her to run. But we were too late. One of the men grabbed my wrist, jerking me violently to the ground, and the two began dragging me deeper into the dark alley. Harper. Harper. What are you doing? Let go of my daughter. My mom went berserk, rushing forward. Having trained at the academy, I could actually hold my own and fight back against them. But my mom was just an ordinary middle-aged woman. As she threw herself over me to shield me, one of the men kicked her brutally in the stomach. She flew back, her head crashing violently against the stone curb. Blood drenched her face instantly. Mom! I screamed, my eyes turning blood red. They still wouldn't let go. Pure adrenaline and rage took over. I smashed a discarded beer bottle against the wall and swung the jagged edge maniacally at them. Terrified by my murderous frenzy, the two men fled. My mom needed 5 stitches on her head. Though her life wasn't in danger, the trauma left severe concussions and long-term complications, chronic migraines and memory decline, which would only worsen with age. The moment the hospital stabilized her, I took a cab straight to Haley's house. She was frantically packing her bags to flee. I kicked her suitcase away, grabbed her hair, and delivered 5 or 6 vicious slaps across her face until she stumbled around, unable to stand straight. Harper, are you insane? She screamed, trying to claw at me. I raised my baseball bat and smashed it hard against her shoulder, then her stomach, then her legs. Within seconds, Haley was twitching on the floor, blood pouring from her mouth. Harper, stop. Let go of Haley. My aunt and uncle rushed out of the inner rooms, horrified. I pulled a hunting knife from my jacket and pressed the cold steel right against Haley's cheek. Step back. One more step, and I can't guarantee what her face will look like. My aunt and uncle froze, trembling in terror. Harper, let's talk. Don't hurt Haley. What did she do? She's your cousin, your own sister. Shut your mouths. I roared. My mom is your biological sister. Why don't you ask your disgusting daughter what she did to my mother? What she did to me? Why is she packing to run away? My mom is lying in the ICU right now with 5 stitches on her head. I don't know what you're talking about, Haley rasped from the floor, struggling to crawl away. I stomped my boot heavily onto her knee, pinning her down. The two men have already confessed everything. Did you orchestrate it? Are you going to speak, or do I use this knife to carve the answers out of you? I slapped her blood-stained cheek with the flat of the blade. She shook in absolute terror, her swollen face covered in blood and tears. I pulled a burner phone from my pocket and threw it in front of her face. You told them to record a video, didn't you? It doesn't matter if you confess or not. The ending is the same. As I spoke, I drove the knife down, cleanly slicing through her ankle tendon. Ah. No. Stop. Haley screamed in agonizing pain. I'll talk. I'll confess everything. Please stop, I'll tell you everything. I had guessed right. Haley was deeply resentful about me exposing her as a homewrecker in the family group chat, and Silas firing her at the sanitarium made her snap. In her madness, she hired 2 thugs to assault me and record a video to completely destroy my life. But they hadn't succeeded. In their panic to escape my counterattack, they had dropped the phone they used to record. I found it, unlocked it, and saw her text logs and the half-recorded video. Once she confessed everything on the floor, I turned off the burner phone. Actually, there was nothing but call logs on this phone, and I haven't caught the thugs yet. But now, it doesn't matter. I pulled out a hidden voice recorder from my jacket. With your confession recorded right here, justice will be swift. No. You tricked me. You miserable bitch. Haley shrieked, trying to crawl forward to grab the recorder, but with her severed tendon, she could only writhe helplessly on the floor like a worm while her parents held her, wailing. The moment I stepped out of the house, I collided into a panicked, breathless Silas. He wrapped his arms around me in a death grip, his body shaking violently. Harper. Are you hurt? Are you okay? Why didn't you wait for me? Why didn't you tell me? I was stunned by the intensity of his embrace, taking a long moment to respond. I'm fine. This blood isn't mine. It's Haley's. He let out a massive gasp of relief, inspecting every inch of my body to ensure I had no wounds before finally calming down. I heard about your mother. Your father called me. Harper, why didn't you wait for me? You shouldn't have to carry this horror alone. Don't you find me terrifying? I asked, holding up the knife still dripping with Haley's blood. Silas stared at me for a long time, his eyes filled with 1,000 unsaid emotions, before settling into a deep whisper, "It only breaks my heart." Chapter 13. He truly meant it. Silas didn't let me handle a single thing after that. He personally ensured Haley was thrown into maximum security prison, and flew in the world's top neurosurgeons to treat my mother, minimizing her long-term brain damage. On the day of the final sentencing, Silas and I stood in the courtroom. Haley was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. She would rot in a cell for the rest of her days. As she was being dragged away, she glared at me with venomous, bloodshot eyes. "Harper, don't celebrate too early. Austin has a massive surprise waiting for you." I woke up from the nightmare in a cold sweat. Silas was sitting right by my bed, holding my hand. "Hey, did you have a bad dream?" I looked around the unfamiliar room, realizing I was in a hospital. After the trial, the immense pressure I had been holding onto suddenly snapped, making me feel faint and detached. I had blacked out right outside the courthouse after my aunt and uncle screamed at me for destroying their daughter's life. The doctor said it was severe exhaustion and stress. What do you think Haley meant by that? Is Austin plotting something behind our backs? I asked Silas anxiously. He can't pull off any tricks, Silas said, squeezing my hand firmly. His palm was warm and thick, radiating absolute safety. I forced down my anxiety and left the hospital with him to go to the sanitarium. I had promised to help him discharge Elder Vance today and go back to the ancestral Vance estate for New Year's Eve dinner. Silas told me his father didn't have much time left, and he wanted to make the old man as happy as possible during his final days. Through these days, I finally understood the relationship between Austin and the Vance family. Elder Vance's first wife was a widow who brought a son from her previous marriage into the family. That stepson was only a few years younger than Elder Vance but still had to call him father. That stepson was Austin's biological grandfather. For the next 30 years, that stepson married and had kids while Elder Vance remained childless, until the widow passed away. Elder Vance later married Silas's mother and had Silas when he was nearly 50. So, although Silas was only 10 years older than Austin, he was Austin's grandfather's youngest half-brother, the sole legitimate heir to the Vance empire. By blood and law, Austin had to call him granduncle. When we arrived at the massive estate, the feast was already laid out, and the living room was packed with people. This was Silas's first time bringing a girlfriend home, and since I came with the family patriarch, the entire Vance clan treated me with immense gravity. The family was incredibly traditional. Before dinner, the younger generations had to kneel and bow to the elders to wish them a happy new year. I hadn't known about this tradition, so Silas quickly stuffed a massive stack of thick red envelopes into my hands. I sat on the luxury sofa, feeling incredibly awkward as wealthy adults double my age bowed to me, respectfully calling me aunt or grandma. Until I saw Austin. Everyone had bowed and received their envelopes except him. He stood across the room, staring at me with pure, unadulterated venom and humiliation. "Austin, get over here, kneel down, and greet your grandma," his father hissed under his breath, nudging him sharply. Chapter 14. Austin stood frozen, his eyes digging into me like daggers. I wasn't in a hurry. Seeing that my red envelopes were empty anyway, I casually stood up to go to the restroom, taking an empty envelope with me, planning to stuff some cash into it. But as I sat in the stall, remembering Austin's arrogant, cheating face, I suddenly changed my mind. The moment I stepped out of the restroom, a loud, resounding slap echoed through the corridor. "You worthless brat. That is your grandma. Kneel down and show some respect." Austin's father had slapped him hard. Silas had told me that after Austin's funds were cut off, his father had been desperately trying to salvage Austin's image in front of the main family. The slap was brutal. 5 finger marks instantly flared up on Austin's face. He clamped his jaw shut, and seeing me stand by the restroom door, he marched straight over. "Do you enjoy being my grandma that much?" he sneered in a low whisper meant only for me. I flashed him a brilliant, blinding smile and raised my voice for the whole room to hear. "Getting such a big, healthy grandson for free? I'm absolutely thrilled." His face turned purple. "Harper." Silas walked over, wrapping his hand securely around mine, his cold gaze sweeping over Austin. With just one look from Silas, Austin's arrogance collapsed, and he lowered his head instantly. "Granduncle." Silas ignored him, gently adjusting my coat collar. "Are you cold?" I shook my head, smiling. Austin slowly dropped to his knees in front of me, gritting his teeth as he bowed deeply. "Greetings, Grandma." His sudden submission was hilarious. I burst out laughing, pulling out the specific red envelope I had prepared. "Good boy. Here's a massive blessing from Grandma." The relatives laughed, thinking it was a cute family joke, and moved into the dining room. Silas and I were seated at the absolute head of the table, while Austin, as the lowest-ranking youth, was shoved into a dark, distant corner. Throughout dinner, Silas constantly placed food on my plate, introducing the massive family tree. Dozens of younger relatives came up to toast us, and I just nodded regally beside Silas. "Hey, Austin. Your envelope from Grandma is the biggest. Let's see what awesome treasure is inside." Suddenly, a young kid ran over to Austin's corner, snatched the envelope from his pocket, and tore it open in front of everyone. There was no cash inside. Only a piece of paper with a giant, beautifully drawn cartoon turtle on it. The kid burst into loud laughter. "Austin, why did Grandma give you a drawing of a turtle?" Ha ha ha. The table erupted into snickers. Austin's face flashed between bright red and deathly white. He slammed his hands on the table, stood up, and screamed at me across the room, "Harper, what the hell is your problem?" I stopped smiling, looking completely innocent. "Grandma was just playing a little joke with you." "Who the hell are you calling grandson?" Austin roared, losing his mind. "You're just a little bitch. Acting like my grandma? Aren't you afraid it'll curse you to an early grave?" The room went dead silent. Silas, sitting right beside me, slammed his wine glass onto the table with a sharp crack. The sound wasn't overly loud, but it caused every billionaire and executive in the room to instantly freeze. The kid was snatched away by his terrified parents. Austin's father was sweating through his suit. He lunged over, delivering another brutal slap that knocked Austin sideways. "You disrespectful piece of garbage. Get outside and kneel in the snow." Austin's mother tried to object, but one terrifying glare from his father silenced her. With Austin gone, the dinner became incredibly pleasant and relaxed. After dinner, the family gathered to ring in the new year. Since I had been suffering from nightmares, Silas took me up to a guest room early to rest. I washed up in the bathroom, but the moment I pushed the door open, Austin blocked my way. "How does it feel playing the grand matriarch?" He stood there, the slap marks still burning on his face, his eyes dripping with a sick, malicious amusement. Chapter 15. I opened my mouth to shout Silas, but Austin laughed mockingly. "Go ahead. Scream as loud as you want. Bring the whole Vance family up here. Then I'll gladly explain to every single one of them exactly how you and I used to screw around in bed." I knew Austin was trash, but I didn't think he could be this vile. "What do you want?" Seeing my tone soften, he took a step forward, completely trapping me against the door. "Harper, I know you still love me. You're only sleeping with that old man to get back at me, right?" I was wrong. I was blinded by Haley's tricks. I know my mistake now. Come back to me. We can go back to how we used to be, okay? Old man? Silas was literally only 10 years older than him, in his prime, and a literal billionaire god. And who said older men weren't better? "Austin, stop embarrassing yourself. I am your grandma now. Show some respect." I reached out to shove his arm away. He refused to budge, grabbing my wrist tightly and leaning his body into mine. "Harper." He reeked of alcohol, apparently forgetting how I used to break boards with my bare shins. I drove my left knee straight up into his groin with maximum force. As he doubled over gasping, I grabbed his wrist, twisted his arm behind his back, grabbed a fistful of his hair, and slammed his head straight down into the toilet bowl behind him. "Eat shit, scumbag." Leaving Austin swearing and coughing in the toilet, I sprinted out of the room. As I turned the corridor, I ran straight into Silas, who was rushing up after hearing a noise. "What happened?" "Go see for yourself." Hearing Austin's muffled screams from the guest room, Silas understood instantly. He pulled out his phone, made a cold, decisive call to security, and then personally escorted me to his own master bedroom. My mistake. I didn't expect him to sneak into the guest wing. "Rest here tonight, you're safe." "Where will you sleep?" I asked. "I have family matters to handle. It might take late." "Get some sleep," he murmured, turning to leave. I didn't want to be alone, so I grabbed his sleeve. "I'll come with you." Silas smiled softly, kissing my forehead. "Don't worry. This room is secure. The dangerous element is being thrown out into the blizzard right now." Silas's room was massive but minimalist, decorated in dark grays. The walls were lined with trophies and academic honors from his youth. I looked through them, realizing some people really are born elites. Eventually, exhaustion hit, and I lay down on his massive bed. The sheets smelled exactly like him, crisp, rich, and reassuring. My mind started wandering, imagining how he looked when he slept here. My face burned, and after tossing and turning, I drifted into a deep sleep. Hours later, I woke up in the dead of night, dying to use the restroom. After stumbling out of the bathroom half asleep, my brain assumed I was back in my own apartment. I walked to the left and climbed onto the plush sofa, rolling myself into the warm blanket. So warm, so nice, I mumbled, hugging the blanket tight. Suddenly, the blanket went completely stiff. I wiggled around, trying to find a comfortable spot, but something felt entirely wrong. This wasn't a blanket. I reached out and patted it. Up, down. Solid, muscular, warm pectorals. A man. My brain snapped awake instantly. Ah! I shrieked, trying to roll away, but the blanket tangled around me. Careful! Silas lunged to catch me, and the two of us went rolling off the sofa onto the plush carpet in a tangled mess. He flicked on the lamp. In the warm glow, I realized I hadn't gone back to the master bed. I had climbed straight onto the sofa where Silas was sleeping. I'm so sorry. I took a wrong turn. I scrambled up, rubbing my bruised backside. Silas stared at me, his dark eyes swirling with a heavy, dangerous heat. Remembering how I had just felt him up entirely, my blush reached my neck. Bye. I bolted for the bed, but Silas snatched my wrist, pulling me flat against his chest. You did that on purpose. I did not. You definitely did. Let go of me, you pervert. I learned from the best, he whispered against my ear. The next morning, I slept in late. When I went downstairs, Austin was completely gone. The relatives mentioned his company faced a sudden, catastrophic federal audit at dawn, and he had fled to handle it. The rest of the holidays passed in a blur of bliss. Silas stayed at my parents' house, humoring my dad and learning how to cook from my mom. We went up to the mountains to play in the snow and set off fireworks in the town square. After the holidays, he escorted me back to my city before returning to his corporate headquarters. But within days of starting work, a group of terrifying debt collectors cornered me at my office. Chapter 16. It was Austin. He had taken out millions in predatory online loans, and I was listed as the primary guarantor. He had tricked me into signing those documents back when we were dating, claiming it was just a small business loan of a few $1,000s for emergency cash flow. Instead, he used my identity-verified data to borrow from dozens of black market loan sharks. Now, Austin had vanished, and the loan syndicates came after me, the interest compounding into an astronomical sum. They barricaded my office, refusing to let me leave. Austin's phone was disconnected. I called the police, but since the paperwork had my legal signature, it was deemed a civil contract dispute, and the police couldn't force the lenders away. Just as I was trapped in despair at the station, Silas strode in, his face dark with fury. He cleared the legal hurdles and brought me out to his car. Austin fled the country, Silas said. Fled? I gasped. Then the debt, it's all on me? Don't worry. Austin only did this because I ruined his business and drove him out of the family. He stole company cash and ran. I will have my finance team pay off the debt. No. I stopped him. I know millions are nothing to you, but this happened because I was stupid enough to trust a snake. Don't pay them yet, let me see if we can find another way. Silas and I went to confront Austin's parents. They were still in their house, but they genuinely had no idea where their son was. Hearing the size of the debt, both elders fainted on the spot. We searched for months, tracking every contact, but found nothing. Under Silas's pressure, the loan syndicates agreed to waive the predatory interest, requiring only the principal, but it was still a massive fortune. We fought them for half a year, even forcing the sale of Austin's old apartment to cover a portion. Finally, unable to watch me suffer through endless litigation, Silas secretly cleared the entire remaining balance behind my back. When I confronted him in his office, he handed me the cleared deeds with a smirk. If you feel that guilty, why don't you just marry me? Consider that money your dowry. In your dreams. I threw a punch at his chest. He caught my fist effortlessly, pulling me flush against his chest, his eyes burning with absolute sincerity. Harper, I've thought about it. If the next few decades of my life are destined to be spent with you, I want to fast forward right to it. He pulled out a flawless diamond ring and dropped to one knee. Harper, marry me. You old man, who wants to marry you? Who are you calling old? Where exactly am I old? He teased, his voice dropping an octave. He proposed, and to my own shock, I nodded and said yes. Our wedding was held during the next Lunar New Year back in our hometown. Elder Vance's health had miraculously improved. On our wedding day, he was walking around completely unassisted, laughing and drinking with my dad like they were lifelong brothers. Listening to their conversation, I finally realized this wedding was something they had orchestrated 20 years ago. Even that cafe blind date had been a calculated trap. Silas wasn't innocent, he was the mastermind. When exactly did you start targeting me? I demanded during our honeymoon, poking his chest. The gash on his forehead had healed into a very faint, silver scar. I had begged him to use scar removal creams, but he refused, using it as leverage to make me take responsibility. Let me think, he said, acting innocent. I punched him playfully. You have the nerve to think? I was your grandson's girlfriend back then. You targeted your own future grandnephew's girl, you shameless beast. I can lose my shame, but I can't lose my wife, he laughed, pulling me into his lap and resting his chin on my head. Actually, I knew you way before he did. You mean the martial arts tournament trophy? Even earlier. No way, I gasped. The hospital trip when I was a toddler? I was tiny. My dad told me since I was a boy that my future wife would be named Harper. So the moment I heard your grandfather call your name that winter day, it was burned into my mind. Later, he had gone abroad for his Ivy League degrees and to run international sectors. By the time he returned, I had fallen into Austin's trap. The night I took a baseball bat to get revenge, Silas had just landed in the country. He had stopped by Austin's apartment to grab some corporate files and borrowed his coat because of the sudden blizzard. After taking my brutal swing, he realized I was single. He went home, dropped a casual hint to Elder Vance, and the parents immediately set up the cafe blind date. Silas kissed my temple. Knowing that the rest of my life belongs to you makes every single day worth looking forward to. Oh, and as for Austin. A few months after our wedding, Chloe sent me a photo from abroad. The man in the photo was covered in filth, his clothes in rags, his legs entirely gone, dragging his body forward painfully on a broken wooden skateboard. If you didn't look closely, you would never recognize the glamorous Austin. We later found out that after he fled abroad with the stolen cash, things went horribly wrong. He was lured into a human trafficking and illegal gambling ring under the guise of a business investment. His money was stripped, and parts of his body were harvested. By the time he escaped, he had sunk into the lowest depths of society. Recently, the trauma drove him completely insane. He roamed the streets babbling about his past wealth to anyone who would listen, a pathetic, broken ghost. But he brought it all on himself. As for me and my billionaire old man, our happily ever after had just begun.